President Xi Jinping is paying a three-day visit to Finland ahead of his trip to meet Donald Trump in the U.S. Why Finland? Is the Chinese president sending a coded message to his American counterpart? And with the announcement of a new economic cluster in northern China, we examine what the central government is hoping to achieve in what is described as a strategy crucial for the millennium to come. Welcome to The Point. I'm Li Xin. Finland is often associated with Santa Claus and Nokia and soused hearings, but there is much more than that. High-tech, green energy and winter sports also set the country apart. Chinese President Xi Jinping is paying a three-day visit to the Nordic country before making his way to the U.S. President Xi and his Finnish counterpart Sauli Niinistö oversaw the signing of several collaboration agreements. How significant is his visit for Finland and for China? How might it affect China as a whole? And why Finland ahead of President Xi's highly anticipated meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump? To get more insight, I'm joined in Beijing by Kimmo Sira, Commercial Counselor of the Embassy of Finland in Beijing, and from the Finnish capital Helsinki by Dr. Risto Penttila, CEO of the Finland Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Dr. Penttila, this is the first visit by a Chinese head of state to Finland since 1995, and also President Xi's first trip to a European Union member state this year. What is the significance of this visit to Finland in your eyes?
Finland turns 100th this year as an independent country, and this is a great honor and a delight for us that the president of the most important country in the world decides to come to Finland. So it's very significant and it sends a very clear message. And I think the message is that small countries do matter in China's worldview, and we especially like the fact that the president is coming to Finland before he goes to the United States. Shows that he has his priorities straight.
Mr. Sira, you participated in drawing up the cooperation agreements between China and Finland that have just been signed by leaders of both countries, and you were giggling a little bit when we heard the kind of importance Chinese president is attaching to his visit to Finland. Tell us a bit more about the content of these agreements and their significance in your eyes.
Finland has held a long relationship with China, especially when it comes to the climate change and clean tech issues. And now we have been able to take that initiative to the next level. Also, there were several different type of agreements signed from regarding the innovative approaches, innovation, collaboration, and so on and so forth. And of course, I mean, one of the most significant issue is that we will get the most northern pandas now in the world, as we are getting two cubs into Finland later on this year.
So I understand there are about 20 agreements that have been signed between China and Finland. Why so many? What is the drivers behind all of this?
I think this just shows that they are, like Dr. Penttila said, the small countries also matter, and Finland has been putting a lot of effort into a long-term relationship on this since basically 1953, and therefore I believe that China is also recognizing the effort. I mean, if we look at for example, there were several invest agreements worth more than 2 billion on a biotech sector. We also signed a collaboration agreement on the winter sports and the upcoming Olympics, and even the one significant thing is that there will be a China-Finland world year in 2019. But also then on environmental issues like clean tech, renewable energy, energy efficiency, all these kind of technologies where Finland is one of the world's leading countries, and China is recognizing that, and both countries are doing collaboration on it.
Dr. Pentila, when Finnish President Sauli Niinisto visited China in 2013, he and President Xi reached consensus on building a new type of future-oriented cooperation partnership. This time around, this relationship is strengthened or is confirmed by the signing of a series of agreements. Now, China-Finnish relationship is hailed as a model of state-to-state relations. Help us understand what exactly are the meanings of this new relationship, and why is China-Finnish relationship being seen as a model for state-to-state relations?
I think there are three ingredients. One, the future orientation. China and Finland both believe that we must use technology to create a better and more sustainable world. And as was described before, clean tech and all the technological innovations that both countries are driving are a very good example of that. So that's why it's future, or want to solve the world's greatest problems through technology. Then there are two other elements why I think that this can be seen as a model. One is mutual respect, and the other one is the pragmatic approach that both China and Finland take to the problems at hand. So I think three elements: technology, pragmatism, and then this very long-standing mutual respect that carries the relationship forward.
Mr. Sira, currently China is Finland's biggest trading partner in Asia and fifth biggest worldwide. Chinese investment in Finland has also seen rapid growth in recent years. For instance, in 2016 alone, the figure went up to 9 billion euro. That is 90 times the total investment by China in Finland during the previous 64 years. How did China and Finland make it, and what are the perceptions of Chinese investment in Finland?
Well, I mean, we have to take one significant investment into consideration, which was the Tencent's acquisition of a Supercell, and that was worth something like over 7 billion. But still, there, like I said, that there has been a steady growth on the Chinese investments into the Finnish companies and the Finnish projects, and government of Finland is looking at. It's really pleased to see this growth happening. I think that the Chinese companies also recognize the Finnish expertise and collaboration possibilities, that what can be done together on these projects and innovative ways of working.
Dr. Pentila, China has been promoting the Belt and Road Initiative as a platform to establish more connections among nations. Now, Finland has always been a supporter, or has been a supporter of the initiative, as I understand, and has joined the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank as a founding member. Now, Finland is not seen as a country immediately on the Belt and Road routes. What's the connection, and what opportunities does Finland see in this initiative?
First of all, the initiative itself is very welcome. It's a new departure, and Finland has supported it very strongly. But the fit really between the new bank and Finland has to do with infrastructure. When you look at what Finland is good at, it's mainly infrastructure projects, whether it's building mobile networks, or whether it has to do with engineering, or whether it has to do with clean air and water. Engineering is something that Finland does very well. So that's why we can make a contribution. And of course, the other part of the coin, other side of the coin, is that Finland has for a long time seen China and Asia as a huge potential for Finland's growth. And we think that this can help Finnish companies grow and build a stronger relationship from China to Finland as well. So as a new financial institution, it is an important step, and we support it for that reason. But there are also very pragmatic, business-oriented reasons that have to do with engineering expertise that you can find in Finland. I think those are the main reasons.
I have just been told that we will have some live footage coming out of Helsinki, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is meeting with the Prime Minister of Finland, Juha Sipilä. But Mr. Sira, before we cut to the live signal, let me ask you this. What do you think is the opportunity Finland is seeing in China's One Belt, One Road initiative, also known as OBOR?
Well, if we look at it on a practical level, I think that the first issue that comes to mind is the Northeast Passage and the possible data cable from China and Japan into the Finland and Europe, and that is probably one of the most concrete possibility. There's another railroad, a track project that it's looking to significantly reduce a European export times into China. So there are these opportunities and concrete level that already has been discussed.
Dr. Pentila, now Finland will take over the rotating presidency of the Arctic Council in May this year, and we're just going to talk about that subject in just a moment. But right now, let's take a look at some footage, some pictures coming out of the meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister of Finland, Juha Sipilä. This is happening right now, and this is happening on the heels of a series of meetings, for instance, between Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Speaker of the Finnish Parliament, Maria Lohila. And Chinese President Xi Jinping just said that he's very pleased to meet the Finnish Prime Minister. Yeah, as we can see, it's a very cordial atmosphere, and indeed Chinese President Xi Jinping must be in very good mood, as we've just witnessed the signing of a series of cooperation opportunities. But Dr. Pentila, I was just going to ask you about Arctic cooperation between China and Finland, as Finland is the rotating presidency of the Arctic Council in May this year, and this is an organization proposed by Finland that groups 8 countries bordering the Arctic Circle. Where can China and Finland cooperate in Arctic affairs?
Well, I would highlight the sister organization, which is called the Arctic Economic Council, and that is a new initiative as well, and it is trying to promote business and economic links between countries. So I think that this new dimension of the Arctic cooperation that Finland is very much trying to push forward, and I think that has to do with mutual interest regarding transportation through the new routes up in the north that are opening up through the climate change. It has to do with the resources that can be found in the Arctic. The Arctic is a huge opportunity for both China, Finland and the world, but it is also a very delicate area where we need to go very carefully. So that's why cooperation between Europe, the United States, China, Russia is very important, and this is the direction that Finland wants to push the Arctic matters, that we get China involved as much as possible together with the other great powers, because it is one of the great opportunities, but one of the very sensitive areas on our globe. So Finland is very much pushing for greater cooperation, especially on the economic side, regarding the Arctic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pentila, joining us from Helsinki, and Mr. Sira joining us here in Beijing. And here comes my point. A 90 times jump in Chinese investment in 1 year compared with all the previous 64 years. That stayed in my mind. This shows what pragmatism and mutual respect can achieve in a bilateral economic relationship. This can only be possible in an environment of free trade and open markets. President Xi is clearly sending some messages prior to his meeting with President Donald Trump of the United States, for whom trade and economic issues are set to top the agenda. But will Trump read the writing on the wall? Let's wait and see. China announced on Saturday plans to establish a special economic area in Hebei province in northern China. Xiongan is planned to be an area of national significance along the lines of the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone in southern China and the Shanghai Pudong New Area in East China. Xiongan will help divert some functions from Beijing, which is creaking at the seams, and explore new development models. Once finished, the area will be 2,000 square kilometers large, 3 times the size of New York. Now, the decision is described by the central government as a strategy crucial for a millennium to come. CGTN's Ning Hong went to Xiongan to find out more.
A new city from scratch. 3 counties in North China's Hebei province have been designated as the location of a future economic zone. Xiongxian, Anxin, and Rongcheng are now collectively known as the Xiongan region. It will also be a model for smart cities in China. Only about 100 square kilometers have been identified. It will be expanded to 200 and then to 2,000. That's larger than Shenzhen, one of China's wealthiest cities. Local residents are understandably excited.
We're very excited hearing the news. I hope the environment and the economy here will be better in the future.
His optimism is shared by people from other regions. Sales offices for residential property developments are now inundated by hundreds of inquiries from potential buyers.
I came here this morning. I'm looking for investment opportunities.
I am from Beijing. If the price isn't too high, then I can consider settling down here in the future.
These buyers will have to stay disappointed for now. All property sales are currently suspended. The local government is calling on investors and property agencies to refrain from any shady dealings involving the county's real estate market.
For more insight, I'm joined by Professor Oded Shenkar, who is a professor of business management at Ohio State University in the United States and also a member of the Center for Chinese Studies, and Mr. Mo Tianquan, the board chairman of Fang.com, a leading real estate internet portal in China. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Mr. Mo, let me come to you first. One of the functions of the new area is to show us some of the functions that are not directly related to Beijing's status as the capital. What are some of these functions, and why is Xiongan chosen as the site for the new area?
I think the central government chose Xiongan as the new area to shoulder some of the land capital functions. That is a very, very significant decision from the central government. The things I know, is that things like economic, business, and education, some of these things are going to be moved or transferred from Beijing to the Xiongan New Area. And the reason behind that is, frankly, it's very transparent to all of us. Number one, the distances, to Beijing, it's about 120 kilometers away, about 1 hour away. So that's a very good distance, between Beijing and the new area. And actually, the distance from the Xiongan New Area to Tianjin is also around 120 kilometers away. It's very convenient to another big cities in that area. Thirdly, transportation is very convenient, to the new area, whether it's by high-speed train or by highways or other, future trans-city, subways like that. Fourthly, the environmental there is very good. There is a Baiyanding Lake there, which can be combined into a whole, new environmental, system, like a water system there. And lastly, the last point is very important, is that area has sufficient area to develop. It's undeveloped at this point, and it's flat, and it's very easy to develop.
So it's a piece of white paper, as being put by some Chinese people here. Now, Professor Shenkar, Beijing has long suffered from the so-called urban illness, and the topic of phasing out the city's non-capital functions has been proposed for years. How do you look at the timing of the decision now?
Well, the timing of the decision, obviously has to do with the government reaching a conclusion that we are kind of, at a turning point, that pollution and so forth have gotten extremely high. The government needs to do something about it. However, to me, there are still very many questions that are open. We know where these special economic zones will be. Mm-hmm. We know that there will be certain non-capital function that will be moved there. However, we know very little about what else is going to happen there. If you think about the history of special economic zones in China, they were mostly experimental. You can go back to 1978-79, where you had 4 special economic zones, and the idea was to experiment with the new economic model. What is the government really aiming to right now? Is it, for example, and I'm only speculating, to create a new model of a city that is free of pollution, perhaps free of motor vehicle? Is it something that will be focused on the industries of the future, say high tech and so forth? So there are still very many questions that I'm sure will be answered in due course.
Mm-hmm. So actually, Professor Schenker, you asked more questions than providing answers, but Mr. Moore, let me put these questions to you. What Professor Schenker just said is we know very little about what's going to happen to this new area, because in the past many of these economic areas or special economic zones have been experimental. What is your knowledge about this? What has the Chinese central government say that they plan to do with this new area? For instance, a lot of talk on the Chinese press is that the new area is going to be China's next Silicon Valley. Do you agree?
I fully agree with that. The new area, it's close to Beijing, and Beijing, as all of us know, it's already China's Silicon Valley. At least it's the biggest Silicon Valley in China. So it's easy to transfer some of the technology and the people from Beijing to the new area. So I'm quite sure, the new area is going to be a Silicon Valley similar here in this big Beijing area. On the other hand, this new area is not only a Silicon Valley here. It's going to be more than a Silicon Valley, for China. It's going to be another economic center in North China, and not only in North China, it's going to be a economic center for the whole China. It's a national strategy in comparing to Shenzhen and the Pudong Special Economic Zone. Other than that, I think education is another area. I think Beijing has the most universities in whole China, and I think with the expansion of all the universities, and some of the functions of the universities are going to be moved to the new area. Other than those two said, and environmentally, I think the new area is going to set up a model for how the new area is going to be developed. Because in China, there are many new areas, in different cities. I think this Xiongan New Area is going to set up a model for how to develop an area with a very good environmental protection prepared there.
Professor Schenker, I don't know whether Mr. Moore's answer answers some of the questions you just raised, and what do you think are the opportunities of this new economic area and the challenges it potentially faces?
Right. So again, referring to the earlier comments, yes, this all seems to make sense, but we don't have much detail on that. I should say that as I see it from a strategic perspective, this is somewhat of a shift, and maybe a monumental shift from a decade-old focus on the hinterland being developing the West, which has been a theme of the Chinese government for many years. I think the government has come to a realization that there are a lot of issues that are actually inland, along the coastal areas and around metropolitan areas such as Beijing, and it is aiming at also reducing this disparity. I've actually looked at growth rates, for instance, for the new area vis-a-vis Beijing, maybe half the growth rate of Beijing. It consists of a lot of sun-setting industries such as steel and iron that are also polluting Beijing, but also areas with a lot of layoff. So the government is targeting those areas for a model turnaround. I would agree with that, but again, it remains to be seen how will the model look. It is nice to talk about Silicon Valley, but Silicon Valley quite differently, I mean almost on its own. It is true it is developed around higher education institution, which is probably part of the idea in here, but in and of itself that remains a very important question: to what extent can the government guide innovation? If you go back, for instance, to the Japanese example, it did not work very well. So will the government be able to assist in an infrastructure, and within this infrastructure we're going to see a lot of, for instance, private companies, a lot of startup? Probably that can be what the government is looking at. But again, I think the government itself realizes this is an experiment, which is why it is starting it in a specially designated zone rather than in the country at large.
Sure. Well, indeed, Professor Shankar, as many other people here, we all are asking these questions, but we're also very curious how the Chinese government is going to push forward the plan to realize its objectives step by step. But I think the central government should have thought about this decision in a very careful manner. Anyway, we have to leave the two gentlemen for joining us today, and don't go away. My last point is coming up right now. So Xiongan could be the next big Silicon Valley, but the key lies in managing innovation, especially on the parliament. It is important to avoid the pitfalls that an explosive growth of IT industries can bring, such as the imbalanced growth we can see between California, Silicon Valley and the Rust Belt regions in the US, for instance. China's central government is expected to ensure that the growth of Xiongan is highly integrated into China's overall economic growth. That way, Xiongan's prosperity will let other areas benefit from the spin-offs it creates. That's all from this edition of The Point. I'm Li Xing. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time.